Anand, how are you doing? It's very nice to see you.
Doing fabulously well. Awesome. So great to see you as well, Mark.
Thank you very much, AB. It's very nice to see you after all this time. So I'm here with Anand Bhatnagar. Anand is a leader within the oil and gas industry in India. And Anand and I have worked together a number of times over quite a long period of time, actually, with people in his organization. And I would call Anand a very authentic leader. So we've met to interview about this idea of authentic leadership. So AB, how are you doing?
Doing very well. Absolutely good. So couldn't have been better.
Very nice, very nice. Okay, so let's dive into the interview. AB, so tell us a bit about where you come from. So where you grew up, how you started work, and the outlook that you have on life as a result.
So thank you, first of all, Mark, for considering me worthy for this talk. I feel honored, and I've always had some great respect for you. My family has great regards for you. Right? So on that count, let me first of all say thank you for this invite and for this opportunity. So let me start. I was born in the state of Gujarat in India, and in a city called Baroda, and I grew up in the state of Gujarat all my life. And I come from a family which is massively educated, right? So education runs very deep in our family, and the upbringing was challenging to say the least. And from that early age, I understood the importance of compassion. I think so. That's a trait that is so very important, very important that we think about compassion. My schooling happened in different parts of the country, because at an early age we had some challenges in the family. So I had to stay with my father's elder brother, and then he was in a transferable job. So every 2 years his job would get shifted from one place to the other place. So we would go, pack a baggage and then go off to a new place. So I traveled a lot, and been to different places, and then did my most of my schooling and my graduation and my post graduation in a place called Surat. Surat again is in Gujarat, which is also the diamond capital of India, the textile capital of India, an entrepreneur city, if I can say that, right?
Isn't
And
that where we had chocolate in the glasses?
That's right. That's right.
Right?
That's right. That's
Yeah.
right. And I bet that's one of the best chocolate you will ever have.
It was great. I love that. It was brilliant.
Oh, so known for roadside food and all of that.
Yeah. Yeah, lovely. Okay. So when did you get going, maybe? Did you go to university and then sort of starting
Oh
point?
yes,
Yeah.
yes. So I did my graduation and started working along with my graduation days, right? But the proper job was immediately after my graduation. That goes back about 27, 28 years, and then after that, about 7 odd years, I decided to do my master's in business administration. So I did my MBA again from Surat, but between my graduation and my master's, there was a work experience, real field experience of about 7 years. So you get a feel of what's happening on the field. Otherwise, it becomes very theoretical, and you don't understand, you don't relate, right? So I got going in about 91, 92 types, and being a physics graduate, obviously you get a job which is a routine, and every day in day out you come and do the same job. You do what you did yesterday, and tomorrow also you will come and do all that you're doing. So that was too much of a routine and a rut for me. So I said, that's enough. I wanted to get something which is more challenging. So that's where I got into sales. So yeah, that's how it started. Long back. The story goes back long time.
Yes. So I know you as someone who works with people as a trainer, as someone in learning and development. So what happened? You went from sales into that, but I sort of feel you as somebody who is extremely purposeful about what you do. So how did you arrive at that purpose and that level of motivation? I'm hearing you didn't like fitting very much. You felt you didn't want to fit. You didn't like the routine. So
That's right.
what took you into teaching others?
That's a great question. That's a great question. So let me help you. So it's about 16, 17 years that I was in my career in sales, right? And I was doing pretty well. And I have had the good fortune to work with leaders. I'm not talking about bosses. I'm talking about actual authentic leaders, and leaders develop leaders, right? So leadership is all about the other person. It's not about him or her. It's always about the other person. So was fortunate, and I had a couple of leaders with whom I worked, and they saw a different talent in me. So in terms of the management terms, you can say a blind spot, right? So in our sales organization, we do a lot of product training, and we do a lot of training for our frontline sales people. So I used to do a lot of training for our frontline sales people, do product trainings, and people used to enjoy my sessions. They used to have fun because I somehow bring in a bit of humor and bit of laughter, and able to make complex things simple. That's what people say. And I have grown to believe that yes, I can make complex things simple. And then even my colleagues, they would say, Anand, why don't you do the session for our team as well? So from my small little team, it started expanding to the other teams in my office, so on and so forth. And then in one of the reviews, the annual talent review that we have, this leader of mine, he's still a mentor to me. He asked me that, where do you see yourself 5 years from now? That typical question, right? And I gave a very typical answer. He says, Anand, he told me my strength. That was, I believe, the first time that I understood what strength as a concept is, right? And he was able to connect the dots for me. He says that you read a lot, you are a process oriented person, and you have that knowledge, you have that flair, you speak well, so on and so forth. So I was thinking that this is one more sales pitch, and he's trying to get some job done from me. And he said, boss, tell me, what do you want from me? I'm not used to listening to all these flowery words, because salespeople, we hardly get some all these kind of words. But anyways, to cut the long story short, he said, I see you as someone who can influence lives. And he used a word which I still remember, and I don't think so I'll ever forget. He used that word, scale it up. Right. So my influence was in closed doors, so as to say. So with about 10 people, 20 people, 30 people, 40 people at max. And he says, you need to scale it up.
Yeah.
And he encouraged me to move into the learning function, the training function, right? So the transition happened because of that dialogue. And then after that, I would do my sales job during the day. I would prepare myself for sessions at night, and reading was something that was obviously very close to me, and I have had the good habit of reading, so that kind of helped. But I used to do a lot of mock sessions. I would come and come home, get ready, go back to office, do a lot of mock sessions, and so that's how the transition happened.
Yeah.
And then slowly the sales responsibilities kind of went down, and the training responsibilities started going up. So I started with sales training. And because I came from a sales background, and I believe that training in a classroom is only 10% effective. So the 70-20-10 rule of learning. So I understood that when rubber meets the road, that's the time learning happens.
Yeah.
So I was always ready to go onto the field on a sales call with the other sales fellows and demonstrate it to them, right? And I think so. That's how the transition happened. So if I were to give credit, I would give credit to the fact that I was fortunate to have leaders who invested in us and who were also interested in us.
So that's what I'm really hearing from that story is that in your first step into leadership was where somebody gave you the self-belief, who said, actually, this is something that you could really do. And that then helped you to take up that path, maybe to give a sense of self-belief in yourself, that you could do that yourself and then help others. And I love that scale it up side. as well. You know, so our reach is probably only as far as we believe that we can reach. And if
That's
other
right.
people say you could reach further, well then, you know, that changes that frame of reference for you, doesn't it?
That's
Yeah.
right. That's right.
Nice,
That's
interesting.
right.
Yeah. So what gets you out of bed now, and what are you up to now?
The same thing, right? So the thing that gets me out of bed is the four words that I've kind of made my tagline: that you start unknown and you finish unforgettable. Right? So I believe everyone under the sun, no matter what they do, no matter what domain they work, we all start unknown. But how do you finish unforgettable? So, thing that pushes me out of the bed every day morning is to be able to impact lives, to be able to show the way to someone. And I believe every successive generation should be better than the previous generation. So, right. So, how can I pass the baton to the next generation? How can I help them become the best versions of themselves? Right. So my vision is to impact 100,000 lives by 2027, and I think so that drives me. That is what I do. Even in my day to day job, it's just not limited to the delivery of a content that I'm supposed to do.
Right.
But I'm a person. I believe in pouring my heart out in the hope that there is one person who may get influenced by a sentence that I speak, or a word that I speak, or a suggestion that I give, and that person will be a transformed person. It becomes a tipping point for him or her. And so that's the opportunity to impact life, the opportunity to help people become the best version of themselves is something that drives me, something that motivates me.
So AB, that we talked before we started just briefly about leadership and looking around the world, in particularly at this moment in time when there's a pandemic going on, and some of those examples of leadership don't seem to be especially authentic. So what do you think differentiates someone who is an authentic leader who can make a difference in the way that you're talking about versus?
Well, that's a great question, Mark. That's an absolutely great question. So sometimes in my solitude, I think about where is Nelson Mandela of today? Where is Mahatma Gandhi of today? Where are the Martin Luther Kings of today? Right. So and so on and so forth. Right. So these are a few handful of people who, in my opinion, come under the bracket of leaders, because it was never about them. It was always about the other person. So the locus of control was always the other person. It was never them, right? And if you look at these leaders, they gave everything that they had for the betterment of the society, right? So it was more of servant leadership, right? So it is to serve, right? So am I here to serve, or am I here to be served? I think so. To serve is what, in my opinion, separates a leader from just a person who is in position. That's number one. Number two, if I look at what's wrong today, I think so. The notion is leadership is all about a position. It is a chair that I occupy, the title on my business card.
Yeah.
I think so. Leadership today has reduced to privileges, power, and prestige, and so on and so forth. And I don't think so. That's leadership, right? The leadership is nothing to do with power, nothing to do with the prestige that you have, the privileges that you have. That's not leadership. Leadership is influence. So are you having the influence, right? So if you look at the people that we look up to, whether alive or dead, you look up to them with reverence. There is that awe-inspiring feeling when you think about them and the sacrifices that they gave, right, both personally and from a career point of view, to make this world a better world, right? So when I look around, not just limited to my country, but if I look at the whole world at large, I think so it's more self-centered, right, rather than building the credibility. I think it's all about money. How do I maximize that? I see a lot of manipulation that is happening today, which should never happen, because you're putting at risk lives of hundreds of thousands and millions of people just for your selfish motive, right? So the ability to build trust is something which I think so, is missing today, right?
Yes.
And over the years, when I talk about authentic leadership, or if I talk about the word trust, which is so very integral to leadership, and if I can make that into a formula, I think so. There are four factors that build trust, that augment trust, that takes it to the next level. And there's one factor that reduces it, it erodes it, it destroys it. So I think so. If we were to put it into a formula, it would be trust is equal to CHRI, that in the numerator, and in the denominator it would be SO. Let me explain this to you. So the first alphabet that builds trust is C. So C is your communication. I believe communication is the bedrock. Number two, your commitment. Number three, are you competent? Right. So I look at the professional lives. If I'm doing something, I have some credentials, academic credentials that allows me to do what I do. But unfortunately, if you look at leadership in the world today, people who are in a position of influence, you check what credentials do they have. It's just that they had the money power or the muscle power in most cases. That is what happens. So the C would be communication, credibility, your commitment, your competency. I think so that builds trust. The second alphabet is H. And for me, H stands for honesty. And if I can add an adjective to it, I would say brutal honesty. Are you brutally honest first to yourself? Because leadership is first leading self, then leading someone else.
Yeah.
The third alphabet is I. For me, I is intimacy. Right? So are you in intimate relation with your stakeholders, with the people that you're serving? The alphabet R is for reliability. Can someone rely on you? Right? Are you building that reliability, that dependability? I think so. These are factors that build trust. And what's in the denominator that destroys trust is SO. And for me, SO is self-orientation. Right? So it's if the self-orientation is high, obviously the trust is going to go down. And I think so. The challenge today is people are more self-centered and less of the notion is I should be selfless, not self-centered. But unfortunately, you hardly come across people who are selfless in their motives to serve others. So I think so. That's the problem today. It's all about money. It's all about the position. It's all about the privileges that you have, and taking decisions which are more myopic at best, and definitely not a vision. So you need to have a vision that compels people to follow you.
Yes, well, the question that was building in my mind was, so in order to be an authentic leader, you cannot be so unless you have some followers.
Oh, yes.
Yes.
Otherwise, you're just taking a walk in the park.
Totally. You're just a crazy dancing person in the middle of the field.
That's right.
Yeah. So that ability to get followers is, of course, is predicated on trust. Absolutely, it is. But what you just said there was quite interesting, So tell me a bit more about that role of leadership to build for the future as opposed to the short term, which I think is probably the result of the power and the privilege and the other things you were mentioning there.
So it's like, are we building for the next 20 years, 25 years, 30 years? Am I building the next generation? Like the statement that I just made a while back, that each successive generation has to ensure that the previous generation, or let me put it in simpler words, the successive generation should be better than the previous generation, right? So and the onus lies with me, then the responsibility of that lies with the leader, right? And leadership is not position. I said it is more of a disposition. Yeah. It is not a chair but a choice. Yeah. It is more of influence, nothing else.
But right? you do need power to make change.
That's right. So, and power can come through three ways. Power can come through position, power can come through expertise, and power can come through relationships.
Right.
And I think so. What sustains is the power that comes through your expertise and through your relationship. What is short-sighted is you are misusing power. Like there's that adage that says power corrupts, and absolute power corrupts absolutely. Yes, I think so. Looking into building the future, what I am doing, will it outlive my life? Right. So, am I going to live a legacy? So, I say this, that leaders should LIVE a legacy, live a legacy, so that they can LEAVE, leave a legacy.
Okay.
And I think so that is fundamental. And if you take that and if you drill it down, you will get the qualities that are conspicuous by its absence, like compassion, like empathy.
Yes.
And minus compassion, minus empathy, you are just using the power of position to manipulate people. So manipulation is not authenticity.
There's a big issue with all of this, isn't there? And that is, in order to be that way, you have to make yourself vulnerable in some way.
Absolutely.
And vulnerability can be risky, can be dangerous. And I often think that's why people who are disposed towards authenticity, who like the idea of it, often reach the brink and don't take the leap, because they perceive that vulnerability is actually one of the requirements.
Absolutely.
So how can you be vulnerable but also be successful as a leader, do you think?
Well, that's a great question. In fact, on my resume, I'm one of the few people who have put values, my core values, on my resume. In my life, I have not seen anyone do that. And one of my values is I always say I'm a vulnerable person, right? So I'm not projecting to be a perfect person. I'm not picture perfect. I'm going to make tons of mistakes. So what it does, once I as a leader have accepted that it is critical that I understand the value of being vulnerable, what it does is it will help you recruit people, have people on your team who are better than you. Right. And I think so. One of the things that is going wrong is when leaders are recruiting people who become the yes person.
Right.
And we need to have people who challenge that, right? So I would have my own 4 or 5 strengths where I am good at, but I also have my own list of areas where I'm not so good at. So can I have someone on my team who complements my skills? So what happens is, let's say Anand and Mark are working together. So I have strengths in your areas of development and vice versa. So
Right.
we complete each other. We complement each other. We don't compete with each other.
Yeah.
And as a result of that, and I listen to some political debates, both in my country and otherwise, it is just, throwing mud at each other. It is just saying that this person is useless, and I'm like God's blessing to mankind. Right. So yeah, so personal attacks and getting personal, I think so that's definitely not what we need to see, right? So these I think so points should change.
Well, they all make complete sense to me if you consider the systemic problems that we are facing as a race. The large global issues, they require this level of collaboration and this level of trust and vulnerability in order to properly address them. Because if you're always the strong person, never a chink in the armor, then you're always dealing in a sort of a false way with the world, I think. Yeah, it's very.
And an image that comes to my mind, as you said, that chink in the armor brought an image in my mind, is like if you see a flight of geese flying. The flight of geese always fly in a V. And we know why they fly in a V. It reduces air resistance by 72% or improves flight efficiency by 72%. We know all of that. But there's one more truth there. And if you study that, the geese that is taking the lead role does not always remain the lead role. There will be times and seasons where the lead person goes behind and allows someone else to lead it.
Yes.
Right. And you will see the other geezers, they are encouraging them. They are saying that, okay, let's go. right? So it's like leading from front and also leading from behind,
Yeah, yeah,
right? So you at times become a shepherd, so you lead from behind,
yeah. Well,
and then you take turns.
I think there's quite a lot of value in that model of leadership, because it's actually quite tiring. The reason they change position is because it's quite tiring to be at the front.
That's right. That's
Right. And it is tiring. It is lonely and difficult to be a leader and to always have the answers and be optimistic and, and vulnerable. And you always be the person that other ones are shooting at and all of that.
That's right.
I mean,
That's right.
that's
And
hard. Right?
you take it on the chest, right? So I have seen both in my professional life and otherwise as well, that people are so quick to take credit. They will jump at the point of taking credit, but when things don't go as per plan, or they just pass the buck to someone else, right? So they don't take the ownership. I think so. Ownership mindset is fundamental to leadership.
Yeah, there's that taking of accountability is
That's
a
right.
personal choice. And once you've done that for yourself, then you can't do anything else except take accountability for everything you're doing. That's very critical, and also helps you with the vulnerability, I think. Yeah. So how do you stay resilient, AB? How do you keep motivated? Because I mean, I know you to be a very smiley, always optimistic, always positive person, but that's not possible all the time. So how do you regenerate?
So this is a question that even in my organization, people have asked me several times. Honestly, I actually don't know the answer. That what keeps me going all the time. In my opinion, and this is just my thought, if you take resilience or if you take grit, a synonym of resilience, I think so. Resilience or grit binds passion and perseverance together. So if my right arm is passion and my left arm is perseverance, I think so that the glue that binds passion and perseverance together, I think so, is resilience or grit. So you bounce back, you fall and you bounce back. And my life has been a series of failures, series of setbacks. But I've always said a setback is setting you up for the next level of success.
Right. Yeah.
That is one. Second, I believe that unless I have the 6 inch between my 2 ears, if this is in order, the rest everything else will fall in order. Right. So the mindset, I think so, is very, very important. So people ask me that how do you remain so happy and cheerful and in a work environment which is otherwise so very stressful? I said it's a choice. You can crib and complain about it. That's a choice.
Right.
What I do is a choice, right? So I say the serenity prayer every day before I go to work, right? So I'm sure most of the listeners would know the serenity prayer, that God give me the wisdom to understand between the things that I can change and things that I cannot change. So there are a few set of things I can change, and I need to have the audacity to change it. And I also need to have the pragmatism to understand few things are out of my control. I can't change them. And I ask God to tell me the difference between what I can change and what I cannot change. So as long as this clarity is there, I think so it rubs on. The second thing, again, as I was growing up, as I said, I had the privilege to work with leaders. So when I became a manager for the first time a few decades back, one of my leaders, one of my mentors taught me one thing. He said, as a leader, as a manager, if you are red hot, you will have a team which is lukewarm. And if you as a leader or as a manager are lukewarm, there aren't many people who would want to work with you. Right? So that energy, that enthusiasm, that vitality, that zest, that vigor, I think so is infectious. It rubs on people. Right? And I think so that is, I'm a very passionate person, and that passion is what drives me. And I'm yet to meet a person who is passionate about what he or she does, and they would be, like the cover page of the book of Lamentations.
That's great. I know you to be a man of faith. So how does your faith assist you or help you in maintaining that level of optimism and resilience? Is that a factor in your
Oh
leadership
yes,
practice?
absolutely, absolutely. That is the main thing.
Yeah.
Let me put it in a sentence. I don't know what my tomorrow holds, but I know who holds my tomorrow.
Mm.
So I have faith, right? And I have always said that I am what I am because of three support systems that I have in my life. The number one is the praise of my parents. The praise of my mother is like the wind behind my back that helps me on my onward and upward journey. I believe prayers are like the wind beneath my wings that help me soar. And in my endeavor to to go above and beyond, I think so that propels. That's the impetus I get. So prayer is very important. I have a faith that prayer can move mountains. The second, I've always had the faith that the support that I get from my wife, her name is Smruti, that is so very important. She is the person who converts our house into a home, which is so very fundamental. And the ineffable smile and the love that we get from our daughter, her name is Natasha. I think so that whole system is something that makes you the person you are. Like I hear so many people say that I'm a self-made person. And when I hear someone say I'm a self-made person, I kind of think, if you're a self-made person, why did you make yourself the way you are? You could have made yourself a bit better. Right? So I don't think so. There is anyone who's self-made. So there is so much of support that goes behind it. And the Bible tells me that the Lord has plans for me. The Lord has created me for a purpose. I may have many plans, but my faith says that it is the purpose of the Lord that prevails. So I always put God first in my life. In fact, the first line on my resume says I put God first. And there are many people who say that's not exactly the right way to start
Right. Yeah.
professional life. But I said that's what I am. Without His help, without God's help, I
Sure.
am a zero.
Yeah.
Right. So yes, I am. Whatever I am is because of faith, and nothing can move me on my faith. So that's absolutely rock solid.
I mean, that is a really fascinating dimension, I think, to this, and certainly the people that we've interviewed who have a similar faith. It may not be in the same deity, but in something, a similar faith, a similar bedrock, if you like, have the same level of passion that you're demonstrating. So I mean, it is a very, very interesting dimension.
That's right.
Wow. Okay. So if you think about other people who have inspired you, have you got any sort of great leadership stories of what helped you along the way? I mean, I love the early story about you getting inspired by that somebody who made you realize something about yourself that you didn't already know. So have you got any other stories that you sort of, admire about other people or people who've impacted your life?
I'll share a few, right? So, for example, I have never got a chance to work with, let's say, Steve Jobs, but I have read a lot of books about him, and he is one person I have been inspired by. Just think about the fact that he starts a company and is so passionate about innovation and bringing in, wanting to create a dent in the universe, that he is thrown out of the company, and he comes back into the company around the 1997, circa that time. And in in about 2 months after rejoining the company, he talks about a vision that he is setting for his team, and listen to him, and the way he is able to connect the dots, take the team from where they are and into the future, right? So Steve Jobs, for his sheer ability to mobilize the talent of the people, take them to the next level, is something that I get really inspired by. While I have never worked with him, I've read a few books on him and listened to some interviews. So that he is definitely one person who has inspired me in terms of leadership.
Mm-hmm.
Then you look at the company that I work for, right? The founder chairman of our company, he had no resources, but he was resourceful. There was a time that he did not have money to even afford a telephone. And today it's a $142 billion company, one of the Fortune top 100 companies. So if you look at that, the ability to, uh, you know, uh, be resourceful. He may not have the education, but the competence that he had is something which inspires me a lot, right? So uh, talking about Nelson Mandela, right? He has been a great influence as far as leadership is concerned. There's a movie that I would suggest everyone listening to me to, if you get a chance to watch it. That movie is called Invictus,
Right.
right? And Invictus is a story, and it's just an amazing story. So whenever I think about it, I think of one statement which he makes in that movie, that forgiveness liberates the soul. And it is a statement. I heard it, and it has stayed with me ever since, right? So yeah, these are some people, and even in my organization there are some fabulous leaders who don't operate from the position, but the influence they have on people is awe inspiring. Yeah, so there are a few people who have really made an impact in my life. I look up to them in terms of their approach, what sets them apart. And trust me, you can count those on the count of one hand. You will not even need a second hand. So they are a very few people.
Yes, it is interesting, isn't it? And how the sort of the balance of the way that leadership operates across the world, it is like a pendulum. It swings one way, it swings another way. The last 70 years or so, broadly, very broadly speaking, has been sort of a liberal, authentic direction, if not always that, certainly in that direction. But it does seem to have swung a bit back the other way recently,
That's right.
particularly in global leadership, big figures. So I'm curious, do you think that authentic leadership has the answers? How does it have the power to bring people together, to heal divisions, to create that world that we all talk about?
If there is one answer, that is the authenticity. I don't think so. We need to go further than that statement, right? So I think so. If the world needs healing, and we all know that the world needs healing, and the only way the world is going to get healed is by authentic leaders, not manipulative leadership,
Right.
right? And looking beyond your own self, right? And I think so. Authenticity makes you vulnerable, and I think so. Both of them go hand in hand. One can't exist without the other,
Yeah.
right? So I'll have to really think deep and hard if there are some leaders from the current political or the business system that I think of, and can I put them under authentic leadership and vulnerable leadership. I'll have to think really hard to find even a few names.
Yes.
So that's the sad part. And you are seeing that in every aspect. Look at global warming. Look at climate change. What have we done to this climate?
Yeah.
I think so. It's going to a point where it's going to go beyond repair.
Yes. And you're really seeing
still,
that in India as well.
Oh yes. And still no one is willing to do anything about it.
Yeah.
The use of plastics. And I was doing a course on Coursera on climate change, and some of the statistics that are there, it kind of steals the broad daylight out of you, right?
Yeah.
What are we doing,
Yeah.
right? With the ocean levels rising, ice melting. Look at every year you report that this year has been the warmest, the hottest year on earth. I work in the oil and gas industry, and look at what fossil fuel is doing, right? And we need to reduce the carbon footprint. And I think so that requires someone to take very strong and bold steps. The example that comes to my mind is Johnson and Johnson. I think so. This is around the 70s period. I'm not remembering the exact year. So they had a medicine, Telecon, or there was a medicine. I forget the name. And this medicine, and this still is a mystery. Someone had picked up the boxes and then injected a bit of poison into it, and kind of brought it back to the stores. So this was over the counter medicine, and there were 57 reported deaths that happened to patients after consuming that particular medicine or capsule.
Yeah.
I'm forgetting the name. And this was brought to the notice of Johnson and Johnson leadership. And Johnson and Johnson leadership said, nothing done. We're going to call back the entire production of that medicine. And it costed them $100 million.
Yeah.
It costed them 100 million US dollars. And I'm talking about mid 70s. And the stock price fell and everything that gets associated with that. But they said, no, we will remain authentic.
Yeah.
We cannot do this. We cannot do this.
Yeah.
And I think so. The world needs such companies who stand by it, saying that okay, and that's how the ceiling came. Today, if you buy a bottle of medicine or capsules, you will see a tamper-proof seal, and that was the birth of that tamper-proof.
Okay, I didn't know that. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's I think so. That is what is needed in today's time.
Yes.
Taking the tough calls.
Yeah.
I will not produce things which are polluting the environment. I'll reduce my carbon footprint.
Here's a really unfair question then, AB, for you. So what's your next step then as a leader? Where are you going? On that basis.
As a person, I would want to get into something that you are doing, influencing people and changing people, impacting people, not just limited to an organization. So that's the next step. And again, the word is because you can scale it up.
Yeah.
Right. And you can reach out, and because of a lot of obligations that you're obligated to honor because of a proper employment, and because of that you remain restricted and limited in terms of what you would want to do in so many other fields, like climate change is something which is very dear to my heart. And so that is where I see myself. While I had a plan, but the pandemic has kind of upset the plans.
Yeah,
so
for a lot of people, I think. Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah.
But it's just a detour. It's not a permanent thing.
No, totally. It's a cul-de-sac. We'll all reverse and go another direction afterwards. And hopefully,
and we'll come back stronger.
Some of the lessons that we're learning are in this direction. You know, it's about taking care and compassion, vulnerability, doing the right thing, making ethical decisions. And that's partly what we're trying to encourage, I guess, through this process. So AB, I really...
And when you talk about ethical, let me just add, when you say talking about ethical, I'm reminded of a leader that I worked with, and he was the risk head of one of my previous companies. And risk is otherwise a very dry subject. No one is interested. And he would come and talk about risk in one line. He said, never do anything that later on you would want to undo.
Right. Yeah.
Right. And that statement defines, the difference between what is right. And, it's just like I can do things right and I can do right things.
Yes.
So I need to focus upon doing the right things. I need to focus upon effectiveness, not just efficiency, right? So there is no control Z in life.
Yes.
Especially in leadership, you just can't do what you feel it's the right thing to do, but it's a decision that you take. Right? So my last statement and parting words for people who are listening to us is, for me, leadership is like an eagle. Right. So when eagle does not have followers, like we said earlier, but one of the traits of leadership is I need to lead self first before I can lead others.
Right.
So look at the word eagle. It has vision. So I think so. Leadership is all about having a vision. And I can't think of many people who today, whether it's in the business world or the political world, who have a vision.
Yes.
An eagle has speed. An eagle can fly as fast as about 200 miles per hour. So I need to have speed that brings in agility. An eagle has grip. So I need to have grip on whatever I'm doing. I can't be shallow. I need to be a mile deep and a mile wide person. I cannot be inch deep and a mile wide person. Most of the people are inch deep and a mile wide, but we need depth. So when I go deep, I can find pearls. And I think so. There are so many qualities. And one of the things that motivates me from the life of an eagle is it hunts fresh. You will never find an eagle eating something dead.
Okay.
And it always hunts live. So what is the leadership lesson? Let bygoners be bygoners. Let us look ahead. Let us look forward. But we are eating from dead meat. We are building discussions on the past. Even in organization, if my boss calls me that tomorrow morning you have a review, so I'll have negative energy with it, because the whole word of review is associated with all the wrong things or the things that have not been done. It is more diagnosis. I think so. Leadership is more of prognosis. So we need to get into prognosis state of mind, and I think so. That is what will make the difference. And the last statement: relativity applies to physics, never to ethics.
Nice. Like that. I like that one. That sounds great.
Yes.
Well, Avi, thank you so much for suffering my questions for a good amount of
honor
time.
and privilege
Really
to be a part of this.
Yeah, really appreciate what you've done for us there. So thanks so much. That was AB, Anand Bhatnagar, and signing off.
Thank you.
Thanks very much.